Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I intend to show you how to make a little turkey napkin holder that you can print out and use on your Thanksgiving. The cool thing about this design is that by using layer change function in Prusa Slicer, we can also create multicolor prints. That way we can get the same multicolor effect that we see right here. Let's get into it. The first thing that we're going to have to do is go back to Tinkercad, and we're going to create a new code blocks design. Once we're inside, we'll go ahead and change the name of our design. Turkey napkin holder. And then we can begin. The first thing we're going to need to make is that first feather for our design. In order to do that, we're going to find the round roof shape and we're going to drag that in. And I'm also going to change the color like so. After we do that, we're going to need to rotate the shape into the correct placement. So we're going to drag in a rotate command, and we're going to rotate around the x-axis by 90 degrees. So no change needed. Next, we're going to need to change the shape to make this a little bit more feather-like. So we're going to drag in one of these scale x, y, z commands. We're going to keep the x at 1. We're going to change the y scaling to be 4. And the z scaling is going to be changed to 0.05. What this is going to do is it's going to take that shape, stretch it out, and make it a bunch thinner, like so. Now, because we're also going to be using a bunch of different shapes, we're going to have to add in this move x-axis, and we're going to change the x-axis to z. What this is going to do is it's going to lift it up ever so slightly so it's in line with the build plate. Remember that when we're 3D printing, we want all of our pieces to be flat, so we've got a nice stable piece in order to begin printing. With our first feather made, we can now begin making the fan of feathers. In order to do that, we're actually going to go to the Control tab and we're going to drag in one of these repeat commands. We're going to tell it to repeat 3 times, and after this, we're going to drag in a copy command. What that's going to do is it's going to take this first feather and we're going to copy it. After that, we're going to drag in a rotate command. We'll rotate around the z-axis and we're going to rotate by 30 degrees. What this does is it takes these feathers and it copies them and then it rotates them 1, 2, and 3 times. However, we can see that's rotating around the center of the shape right here, and that's not quite what we need. What we need to do is take each of these feathers and we need to move them out a little bit and we need to move them down a little bit. In order to do that, we'll drag in a move XYZ command into our repeat command, and we're going to set it so that it moves 5 on the X and 5 on the Y. If we press play now, we can see that it takes that first feather, copies it, moves it, and rotates it. Now we've created one half of our napkin holder, we're going to have to do the same thing to create the other half. And now while we could copy all of our code by dragging it all over again, a simpler way is to go up here, duplicate our original code, and add it to the bottom. The only problem with doing that is that we've copied the same code, so after it makes this first set, the next set of code is going to do the exact same thing again. But we need it to rotate the opposite direction, and we're going to need it to move in the opposite direction. In order to do that, we can simply change the rotate command inside of here from 30 to -30, and we're going to change the move command. Instead of moving to an x of 5, we're going to be moving to an x of -5. As we know, these first 4 lines of code create the shape, so we didn't need to change anything. But the next 4 lines of code are what move and rotate them, so by changing those, we can create our the other side of the feathers. And pressing play, we can see just that. There's one side, and there's the other. Now that we've created our first set of feathers, what we can do is we can duplicate this code and we can add it again to the bottom of our list. Whoops, didn't mean to move it there. I want to move it all the way to the bottom. Make sure you don't drag it inside your code. I'm also going to change the color of these feathers so that we can see the second layer of feathers that we're creating. Now the issue is, if I press play now, that it's going to, again, because we've duplicated the code, it's going to just do the same thing twice. So while it is going to make a second set of feathers, they're going to be exactly the same as that first set. What we need to do is change the size of these feathers. As we know, the first 4 lines of code govern the size of the feathers, so that's what we need to change. The scale command is what changes the size of our design, so we're just going to go in and we want the second set of feathers to be a little bit smaller. So we're going to set the Y to be 3 instead of 4. And we want them to be slightly thicker so that we can do a color change function so we get those different color patterns. So I'm going to change it from 0.05 to 0.1. Now if we press play, we can see that we make our first set just like before, no changes necessary. But when it comes to our second set of feathers, they're slightly smaller, and if we look from the side, slightly thicker. And again, to make that third set, we're just going to go up to the top. We're going to duplicate the second set of feathers, and we're going to change it again. I'll change the colors so that we can see. I'm going to make them slightly smaller. Instead of 3 on the Y, it's going to be 2. The Z is going to be 0.15. And I also found that making the X slightly smaller is going to help us out as well. So I'm going to do 0.85. You can play around these numbers, the rotations, the repeats, to come up with whatever kind of design that you like. But this is what I found worked well. Oops, I made a mistake. Instead of doing 0.15, I did 1.5. There we go. Now, the next thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to make a head, eyes and nose, and something that's going to hold our napkin in place. In order to make the head of our new design, what we're going to do is we'll go down to the bottom of our code and we're going to drag in one of these round or half sphere shapes. Next, we're going to need a move command. I'm going to move this to a Y of 11 and a Z of 7. Now we'll begin working on the eyes. In order to do that, we'll add in a sphere. And we're going to click on this arrow right here, and we're going to change the radius of the sphere from 10 down to 2. We'll then need to move our sphere into position. For my design, I'm going to move it to an X of 3, a Y of 6, and a Z of 9. That creates one eye. And to create the second one, I can duplicate our design, add it down there, and instead of an X of 3, we're going to change it to an X of -3. In order to create the nose, we'll go back to the shapes, and I'm going to drag in one of these cones. I'm going to click on this little arrow. Actually, it'll probably be easier if I just add in a scale command and I change the scaling to 0.3. We'll then need to move the nose into position. We'll move it to an X of 0 because we want to keep it in the middle. The Y is going to be 11 and the Z is going to be 12. The last thing that we need is that ring and hole for the napkin to go into. In order to make that, I'm going to go back to the shapes and I'm going to drag in a tube shape. I'm going to click on this arrow, and I'm going to change the radius of the tube from 10 up to 12. I'm also going to go back to the Modify tab. I'm going to drag in a move command. I'm going to move it to a Y of 30 and a Z of 5. That adds the tube that our napkin will go into, but we have a problem. Part of our design is blocking the napkin from going through. So we're going to go back to our shapes. We're going to add in one of these cylinders, but instead of keeping it as a solid, we're going to change it into a hole by clicking this gray circle right here. We're then going to move it to a Y of 30, matching the tube. So it's going to be in the center right here. And the last thing that we'll need is a group selection command, which is going to take that hole and is going to remove it from the center. If I press play on our design right now, it's going to go through and it's going to complete our napkin holder. Using this design, you're going to create a napkin holder just like the one you see here. However, you can customize this as you see fit. You can make it larger or smaller by altering the size of the different feathers. You can play around with different rotations. You can also use a larger tube and a larger hole if you want to make, for example, a napkin holder that holds multiple napkins. It's up to you to decide how you would like to make this, how you want to customize it for yourself. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you're able to make something really cool, and I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving. I'll see you around, but that's all for now.